What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Really do appreciate you being here. If you are new here, hey, how you doing? My name's Chris and I'm building a business that suits my lifestyle. Now, I've been selling on eBay for about 3 years now, and you can go back and have a look at this video where I talk about that journey and what it looked like for last year and things like that. Well, this video is purely focused on what I'm doing for 2024. And I spent a lot of time in my time away. I took 6 weeks off in the Philippines and really focused on what do I want for 2024, for my life in general and everything, all aspects of my life. But one component was the business. And I've been working on how I'm going to grow the business, not just in 2024, but also onwards from 2024. But it starts in 2024. So in this video, I want to take you through all those details and get into the nitty-gritties of what I'm focusing on and working on my plans. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, chuck them down below as we go through this, and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. So, from a goals perspective, at a top level, look, of course, I want to see a revenue increase. And that's required for every time we look in growing our business, because the more revenue you make, if you're able to continue to grow your profit margins, of course, you'll make more profit. Unless you're just deciding to cut out all the costs. So I want to see a revenue increase, of course. But really what I need to start doing is increasing the profit margin. Yes, I need to be lowering the cost to sell. I want to also continue to remove myself as the bottleneck that is in my business at the moment. Look, I've been able to employ someone and they're doing really, really well to actually take over a lot of the activities. But there's still a lot in the business that requires me. And I want to build a business that suits my lifestyle. I don't want to build a job for me. So we need to fix that. I need to continue to list and refine more of the items that sell, but also while continuing to maintain and grow my sell-through rate. So for FY24, which is July 2023 up until about now, which is January 2024, as I progress for the rest of the FY as well and into 2024, my sell-through rate at the moment is around 60% for this FY so far. So I want to continue to span that out, if not get it better. Now, there's going to be a whole bunch of different things that I'm implementing this year, and that's with a bit of a plan of attack. But the first component of this is levers and rules. So I'll be working further on these to ensure that I can play them back and lean on them and toggle them to ensure that I am enhancing the business. Now, the first one is postage cost. I am increasing how much I'm charging my customers to send an item, and I've increased this by 2%. I thought this was going to be a bad idea, but I actually implemented this while I was away at the end of 2023. And it hasn't had any impact. People have been paying it and it's been able to raise my ASP. Previously, I was doing $10.60 for a small package. That has now been increased to about $10.90. And obviously for the subsequent sizes of postage. Now, this is in Australia, so small, medium, large, extra large. They all have a set cost. I've increased it by 2% because I need to cover overheads. So that's what first thing that I've done and doing. The next thing is additional cost to extra items when bundling items. I'm working on a model that, look, every so often, probably a few times a week, people come through and purchase multiple items. And in the past, I wasn't adding combined shipping of an additional cost. And then I started to do it with $1.60 per item. So I went, if you purchased an item for $30 and then you had to pay $10.60 postage, you would have had to pay $1.60 extra to have another item. Well, I've now increased the postage cost and I've also implemented that $1.60 now to a $2 flat rate, even if it's not even clothing, but a DVD, book, whatever. That's the way it's going to be. And that's working really, really well. I also implemented that from the end of last year. The next thing that I'm implementing is a set budget, ideally to what it should look like to enable me to get to where I want to be. Now, this is a little fluid. It's going to have a bit of a dollar target, but also a percentage weight as well. So for instance, if I was to set a $100,000 budget for the business this year to grow, right? So last year, my OPEX was around $90,000. I've said, let's make it $100,000 at this point. But as long as I can continue to maintain the low level percentage that are flatlined against that 100,000, I don't care if I spend $200,000 as long as the percentages are meeting that expectation or are within range. So for instance, postage supplies should be about 4% of that 100,000. Storage should be around 11%. Office should be about 2%. Consignments, they will be as they occur because they're a cost of good. Actual postage costs, so basically how much I'm spending on to actually post items, 36%. I want to allocate about 20% to my employee, and other and car is about 2%. Now, some of this might need to be adjusted as I go, but I'm not going to know until I do about 90 days. And I've also got about 25% for fees. And that's just giving me an additional buffer on things, right? So some of these might get toggled and adjusted. The next thing is implementing a discounting plan to remove stock and avoiding having to have stock sitting for too long. And in this will be a 5-month plan with a number of reductions. So, and again, some of this is a plan and some of it might need to be tweaked and toggled, but this is my plan at the start of 2024. These discounts will price from time to time, but basically I'll list an item in 6 weeks time because that's usually where things start to change. And I've got this graph that I use for myself where by about 6 weeks, that's when things start to change in terms of people want less money for it and things like that. So 6 weeks is where I'm going to start to adjust my discounting. So I'm going to end it, relist it, or adjust it at about 10% off. And then at 8.5 weeks from the day that I listed it, it will be 15% off. At 13 weeks, it'll be 20% off. At 17 weeks, it'll be 30%. And 21 weeks, it'll be 50% off. I'm going to trial this. If this doesn't work, I might try some different things. But the idea is after 5 months, if those things have not sold, they're gone. They're either auctioned, donated, or I don't care. They're gone. So I'm being brutal. Setting up revised pricing buckets for my clothing, like my bread and butter stuff in the store, to manage better margins. So I've gone through and repackaged how much it costs me to sell an item. And with that, also taking into account what is the lowest amount that I can sell it for, assuming that all these costs are covered. So you can see a bit of an example here, what's the cost of good, postage, packaging, bag, worker fees, etc. And this should give me a pretty good profit of around $10 to $12, give or take, depending on, percentages and things like that. But also it tells me if I was to give a discount, how much is the highest discount that I can give, and I can still make a good $2 profit. Not that I want to be making $2 profit, but the idea is that this, if I can manage this, I should be able to average a 27% margin on these items. And then with, some tailoring and some discounts, and sometimes, there is savings with postage and stuff like that, it should start to trend it towards 30% rather than 26% in terms of profit margin. So that's the next one. The next one then after that is implementing a multi-purchase discount plan. And this is between 1 and 5+ items. And this is actually already starting to work. Basically, I've implemented buy 2 items, full price, you get combined postage and 15% off. Buy 3, 25% off with combined postage. Buy 5, get 40% off with combined postage. Buy 10 items or more and get 50% off with combined postage. I've had a few people dabble with the 25%, but the idea, I've tried to encourage people, but if you buy 3 items at 25% off, they'll see it and they might think, oh, if I buy 5, I'll get 40% off. So it's like the small, medium, large McDonald's kind of psychology experiment. So we're testing that out, and that is to help clear stock. The next one is then revising my profit first process. Over the years, I've had a certain number of different allocations. This year, I'm bringing down how much I'm paying myself. I'm taking a bit of a hit to enable the business to grow a bit more. So I'm going to be paying myself 30% now. Profit will be 1%. OPEX will be 46%. Tax will be 8%. And my worker allocation will be about 15%. And of course, some of these things I might have to tweak and adjust, but we have a plan so we can start to work. I then have implemented a KPI plan. So revisiting it weekly, monthly, and quarterly, and basically tracking metrics on a weekly basis, monthly and quarterly, and actually playing back to myself, what am I doing to get myself back to green? And I followed a RAG status of red, amber, and green. So red being bad, amber being trending back to good, and green being all G. So I'll be doing this weekly on Fridays, and then monthly also, and then quarterly as well. And the idea is it's really just to focus on what is required for further review. What are the things that I need to be doing to get back to where I need to be? What is the status, and what is the action plan? Now, I have loosely set some targets of what I'm trying to achieve this year around sales, like a 60% increase, revenues targeting between $200,000 and $300,000, cost of goods expecting it to be about 15 to 25% of revenue, OPEX being around that 40 to 50% of revenue, and net profits being around 30%. Of course, there's ASP targets and average profit per item targets, but really I want to keep my ASP between $36 and $50. That's the range. And the average profit per item I should be making is around $12. So I'm at least covering my cost basis to purchase an item. With all this, it should get me an operating margin of around 30%, which is what I'm aiming for. I've also implemented a whole bunch of new metrics as well, which I haven't really spoken about much on the channel before. I'm going to go into detail of these. So the first one is cost to profit ratio. And this is basically how much do I have to spend to profit $1? So this will essentially be very important for the business because I want to use it to really, it's just helping me understand compared to the previous years of what that looks like. Now, if you go back to my previous video where I spoke about some of the, results of 2021, 2022, and 2023, you'll understand this a little bit more. But the cost to profit ratio is your cost to sell versus or divided by your profit multiplied by 1. So to make $1, I need to spend $3, or to make $4, I spend $3. So what I really want this to be is around $2. The next one is then cost of revenue ratio. So how much it costs to generate $100 revenue. So this is your total cost of goods sold and also your total operating expenses versus or divided by your total revenue multiplied by 1. So to make $100 revenue, I need to spend $77, for example. I want this to be around $65. The next one is my cost to profit percentage return. And this is essentially my average profit per item versus or divided by the average cost to sell. So the profit return to your cost investment. And I want this to be about 46%. The next one is then return on investment, which is your net profit versus divided by your total cost of goods sold. So this would be the return on investment from the cost of items you have sold. And I want this to be about 150%. This one is probably the most important one. And I want it to be a minimum of something, but your rebuy opportunity. So this is your average profit per item versus or divided by your average cost of good. So how many items can you replenish from the sale? And I need this to be a minimum of 1.5. Ideally 2, 3, 4, 5, because then you can start to compound things. This is absolutely crucial. Now, there are a couple of other little things that I'm working on. Obviously, nice to have goals and things to actually make these goals happen. So obviously expanding my consignment opportunities, expanding how I'm sourcing. And, it'd be nice to hit that $200,000 in revenue. It'd be nice to hit the $50,000 in profit net. But these metrics are more important than that, because if I can get the metrics right, it doesn't matter what the numbers are. It's then about how do I double down in that. So if I can get the metrics right and I'm paying someone to help me or I'm paying this to leverage, how do I then just double down on that to then ensure that those metrics are compounding? So that's my focus for 2024. It's ambitious, it's out there, it's different, it's exciting. I've actually written, it's about it's probably 5-6 pages long of a plan of how I'm implementing some of these things. And I'm going to have to revisit it. That's why I've implemented a weekly, quarterly, and monthly reviews to see what's working, what's not. Because if you've got plans, but you're not adjusting or you're not addressing them early, there's no way to get them back on track. So if things aren't working for the first 90 days, I can start to see something has to change. You can't be making that change 3 months out from the end of the year, right? So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be different. But of course, what I want to do is I want to share this journey with you. So come along for the ride each week, and I'll be sharing how I'm tracking to this. Might even do some of the details in some of my KPI tracking. And as I change things, as I adjust things, as things are working, I'll let you know. And what I want to know from you is, what are you doing for 2024 to grow your business in reselling or small business in something else? Obviously, I sell on eBay. That's predominantly where I sell, and I'm a reseller, but I'm building a small business. I'm building a business that suits my lifestyle. I'm not creating a job for me. So for you, what are you doing? Let me know. I want to hear it. Let me know in the comments below what you're doing to grow your business in 2024. Got any questions, comments, chuck them down below. You can go check out some of my other content. I've got a couple of videos that I've done over the last couple of weeks, which are still very relevant to what I've been talking about today and how I got to this position. So I'm wishing you all the best for 2024. Let's get it. Let's make it happen. And well, let's get to work. Cheers.